Okay, welcome to today's presentation on Revizto 4.0 and the newest features of our newest release of Revizto. My name is David York. For those that don't know me, I've just joined Visura and the Revisto product company in March of this year. Prior to this, I worked with Autodesk and some Autodesk resellers. I've been in the Autodesk market for over 8 years, ran the AEC business in Northern Europe for Autodesk for the majority of that time, and I also worked in their channel organization for the last years with Autodesk across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So quite a few of you, as well as some of the resellers that you've dealt with in the past, have been customized over the last 8 years. Revizto is a product provided by a company called Visura. The company is founded in 2008 with the idea of bringing gaming technology to the AEC industry. The ability to take the heavy workflows and use the large amount of data within the AEC industry, simplify the visualization, and simplify that information to the right people at the right time. In 2012, we launched the product Revizto, and that product was brought to market and people saw very quickly that they were easily able to visualize their building information models that were created within their authoring tools and share those models with the people within their design teams. And then based on that visualization, improve the collaboration that they have within that process. Within the last 4 years, we've had over 60,000 people download and use the Revizto product, and we've received a lot of feedback on that product and how that product can be used to benefit the workflows of our customers. We've taken that feedback and we constantly have released updates, as you may be aware, of the product, and that's culminated in this current release, which is a major release for us, 4.0. So let's get into it. So Revizto as a tool is a tool that allows you to take that design model, as I mentioned, and the building information, modeling information that's created within that design model, share it with your collaboration team, present it in a very accurate way, dimensionally accurate way, to non-technical users within your collaboration teams. And then they're able to use that information to provide feedback, ask questions, and to engage on creating better designs for your customers, ultimately. So a very simple product. The reason we brought it in was to ease and make it very simple for non-technical users to engage and use that building information modeling data. Before I jump into some of the core features of Revizto 4.0, I do have some polls that I'm going to be asking the audience to respond to. And we're going to get into the first polling question now, so I can learn a little bit about you, our audience. I've shared with you a little bit about us as a company and myself. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. So if I go correctly into the polling, I will launch the first one. So, what best describes your business today? You've got multiple choice buttons. You can click on those buttons. You can choose one, and it will tell us what the audience is made up of. We'll give you another minute. Some people are trying to decide who they are, or they're playing around with the tool. Looks like the majority are architects, and the second majority is multidiscipline design firms. Great. So hopefully you like this interaction. With the polling, we're going to use this periodically throughout the presentation today, so I get feedback from you and also learn a little bit more about you and your business. And before we start, I will actually close that poll, and I will open a second polling question. It's a simple yes or no. Are you using Revizto in your organization today? We'll give it a minute for everybody to respond. All right. It looks like about half and half. About 43% or so are saying yes, that they are using Revista today, but about half of you, 57%, are saying no. So I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time going through Revizto so you understand what it is, as opposed to just showing the 4.0 functionality, but I will be highlighting the 4.0 changes as we go through. So I'll go ahead and close that poll, and we'll move on with the presentation. So for those that are not aware, Revizto is a native application that works within your design environment. We are fully integrated into the Autodesk platform. We're also fully integrated into several other platforms that are non-Autodesk based, such as ArchiCAD. Within the European market and the UK market, ArchiCAD is kind of prevalent, so I've highlighted that for this presentation. But we also work with several other applications that are out there. We're fully integrated into Revit, all versions of Revit, Navisworks, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, SketchUp, etc. We also support file formats that are common within the industry. So, for example, Filmbox for the gaming industry and the visualization industry. IFC's Industry Foundation class is pretty prevalent within the BIM environment, particularly here in Europe. The BIM collaboration format, which is kind of new and is coming out and coming prevalent to kind of bring people into a common environment. And most recently, we also have started supporting the portable document format, so which means that anything that's in an FBX, an IFC, or a BCF, or a PDF format can be imported and used and worked upon within the Revizto environment. We also spend a lot of time working with third-party product vendors that are out there in the market today to help make sure that we're integrated as an application. So many of you are familiar with Oculus VR and are using Oculus goggles or some of the other glasses that are out there to provide virtual reality environments of your design. Revizto is fully integrated into that. We'll be fully supporting the new Oculus that's coming out later this summer. And it allows you to have plug and play. In fact, we were the first AEC application in the marketplace that provided plug and play functionality within the Oculus environment, which is really kind of neat. And if you haven't had a chance to try that, I'd fully encourage you to try that, particularly with Revizto. It gives you an easy way to move from that Revit environment or that modeling environment into that virtual reality environment. But we also engage with a lot of partners in each individual marketplace. Here in the UK, there's a company called Igloo Vision. We engage with Igloo Vision to provide Revizto functionality into caving environments. So these are the visualization environments that provide 360 interactive views of the design and allow people to work with those designs in a fully immersive way. Again, Revizto is kind of leading the way within this market. We're not just kind of worried about that design environment, but also making it easy for the users to access that design environment information and integrate with that design information. And of course, many of you, those 43% that are using Revizto today, understand we do work with many of the common tools that are in place out there in the marketplace today. For example, the 3D Connexion, Space Mouse family, we fully support that for the people that are used to, flying through and working within their modeling environments using that tool. They can use that tool within the Revizto application as well. So what's new in 4.0? Some great changes in 4.0 that will help those that have used Revizto already and will actually benefit those that are not using Revizto but are looking to use it in projects in the future. So we made it much more simple to engage with the product. We made a change where you only use the application viewer to engage with your modeling environment from a Revizto perspective. We've also added support for 2D PDFs, which means that you can import your PDFs. If your supply chain provides you with PDF drawings, you can import those into the Revizto environment and redline markup and engage with those just like you would as if they were a drawing sheet that you exported natively into Revizto. We've also improved the project update control to give you better visualization of that. We've provided an ability to schedule the export of the models from your design tools into the Revizto environment on an automated basis so that you could schedule those to happen at off hours or when the office is closed. And we've also vastly improved the markup tools within Revizto to allow you to work in more of the common ways that you have today. So a little bit more detail on those before I go into the demonstration and cover it through. So the 4.0, when I mentioned that you only work with the viewer, prior to 4.0, when you launch the application from the Revit environment or from the design tool environment, it went directly into the Revizto editor. We have taken that out of the workflow, so when you export the model or you launch the Revizto environment, it launches directly into the viewer. Doesn't mean the editor functionality is no longer there. We still have the editor, and it still is clickable from within the viewer, which allow you to improve the visualization, change light maps, change textures, that sort of thing. But we found that the majority of the people were interested in viewing the model and collaborating on the model, so we made it much easier to get into that environment. The second, I mentioned about the scheduling of exports, and I'll show that to you in functionality. It really does simplify that, as opposed to the user having to launch the export of the model. They can actually schedule it in. So if there's a regular design review meeting coming up on Monday, they can schedule the update from the design tools, from Revit into the Revizto environment to happen Friday nights. And so it's there ready to go Monday morning when everybody gets started in that design meeting. The merging of projects from different users, different computers is much more simplified. When I show you the viewer, you'll actually see that we'll be able to see if an updated version of a model is available. We can also see the audit trail of those updates, and it's fully clickable back and forth between previous versions if we want to go back and see a previous version when we're interrogating or collaborating on the model. We also have the ability to export sheets only. If you're using Revizto, and quite a few companies are starting to use it this way to improve the redline and markup process within the design reviews, as opposed to printing off sheets, exporting them as PDFs, printing them off, sharing them as hard copies, redlining with marker pens, and then collating those back to the designers for changes. You can do that completely within Revizto. You can export just the sheets, and you can assign the sheets and the issues and track those issues, as I'll show going forward. And then finally, with the PDF, we have given you the ability to bring those PDF drawings that are provided from your suppliers or other design departments that are not within your organization directly into Revizto, and to have those completely linked in the viewer in vector format, and being able to mark up and annotate those sheets. Again, I'll show this detail as we go into the demonstration. But before I get into the demo, I do have a couple other polling questions I'd just like to go through real quickly, and I'll just launch those now. So for the half the audience that is using Revizto today, what are the features and functions that you're using today within your business? So if you go ahead and click on A, B, C, or D, it is a multiple choice, so you can pick more than one if you are using it in multiple ways within your business. So right now, we're starting to get some responses. Visualization, sharing, building design, and collaborating within the design teams seem to be the leading functions, but it seems like the users are actually using across all the major workflows that we have. So we'll give that another minute just to finalize, another few seconds. If you haven't voted, go ahead and take your chance to vote and play around with this. It's a great tool for interacting with the presenter in these webinars. 60% have voted. Okay, looks like we're going to get about that many answers. So go ahead and close that one. And I've got a second poll that I'll ask as well. So I'm looking to understand the size of the businesses that are in today's presentation. So Revizto works on the concept of collaborators, people that are engaging within the model environment. Within your business, if you can click on one of these that best describes how many collaborators you think that would be engaging in the Revizto environment for us. Okay, we actually got more respondees in this one. Got a few larger businesses that are out there and quite a few teams that are using it in the teaming environment in that 1 to 20 space as well. Give it another second here. And then finally, just to help me, for those that are using Revizto today, have you had a chance to enter the beta? Are you using the beta? Are you familiar with 4.0 and what we're doing? Okay, so about a third of those people that are actually users out there have come in and started using the beta, which is great. Give it another second. All right, fantastic. Thank you very much for providing the feedback, and that'll help me shape how I go through the demonstration today. Okay, I'm actually going to move from the presentation now to the demonstration. So I've got on my desktop here, I'm running this on a laptop, so it's very easy to run on technology that's out there today. I've got Revit open, and I've got a project open within Revit. I open it the normal way that you open projects within Revit. And here's the first, real value of Revizto for those non-users that are in the audience today. The environment that our teams are designing in is a very complex environment. You can just see here from this simple Revit environment, I've got systems, I've got architecture, I've got annotate, I've got insert, I've got toolbars that are infinitely important to the design team, but are just confusing to those people who are either new to the Revit environment or are not very familiar with working within the Revit environment. Many of the other tools out there, SketchUp being one of, kind of one of the alternatives that's not, but the rest of them are fairly complex in the design environment. It's necessary because those guys have very complex jobs creating these great models. So you've got this model in front of you, you can see it's a fully immersed model, and I can interact with it. The problem with sharing models or collaborating on models in that design environment is people are afraid of working within that Revit environment unless they have a lot of experience. They don't want to touch things, they don't want to move things, they're afraid that as they move things, if they click on something, it's going to change the design, and if they change the design, that causes issues. And because of that, that means that people don't interrogate and collaborate, or they need people from the design team in that collaboration process to be able to help them interrogate that design model. So Revizto comes in and is natively integrated into the Revit environment. Traditionally, for those that have used the product today, you'd go into add-ins, and within add-ins, you have some Revizto buttons for exporting and engaging within that model environment. With 4.0, we actually have our own toolbar. As you can see here at the top, I'm using some very neat tools within GoToMeeting that I've not used before, so bear with me. You see my little arrow there? Hopefully that adds value. We have these toolbar areas where we have Revizto 4. And within Revizto 4, you have the same functionality that you had before for being able to export the model, being able to integrate the collaboration or the issues that are created within Revizto back into the Revit model. And also, we have the ability to create issues and the new functionality, which is the export scheduler that I mentioned earlier. And I'll show those to you here very quickly. So within this tool, I'm going to show you export scheduler first. So the way Revizto works is you actually export the model from Revizto Revit or the design environment into Revizto. And what you're doing is you're actually moving that model and creating a wire mesh of that model so we can have a 3D graphical representation of that model in the design environment. But what differentiates Revizto from a lot of the other tools that you may have seen being able to do that, 3ds Max for example, is the fact that it actually brings in all the metadata and intelligence that's been created in this model environment into the Revizto environment. So within Export Scheduler, just single click open that up. You can see it's very simple, turn it on and off from a user's perspective. You have the ability to export just the sheets, to export just the 3D model, to export both, export the viewpoints, or export just the rendered appearance if you just want to show a visualization. If you click the scheduler on, you have the ability to choose the days of the weeks just by highlighting those days and clicking on them, clicking the time that you want it to happen, and then clicking OK. And then behind the scenes, that creates a schedule within Revizto that will launch the application, will launch the Revit application, and will actually automatically sync and link that model that you've clicked that export scheduler on. Traditionally within Revizto, I'll go ahead and turn that scheduler off. Traditionally, exporting within Revizto and 4.0 works very similarly. You just click Export to Revizto. It creates a tool that allows you to export the 3D model with viewpoints and rendering appearance and the sheets. So this is a change for 4.0. You have the ability to choose, I want to just export the sheets, or I can export the model and the sheets, or I can export just the model. You have the ability to export it as a new project into Revizto, or to link it and update a current project. So this is a project I currently have uploaded, so it says link to that project. If I want to change that, I want to create a new project, or I want to link it to another existing project, I have the ability to do that. And when I click next, it actually takes me into the project I want to link it to in my workspace. This is the Revizto viewer piece. I highlight the project and I click next, and it actually creates that export view linked to that camp field architecture demo that I had before. When I click export, it gives me one more step to choose. Now, I can choose when I go to export the sheets to choose to export all the sheets and drawings that are created within the modeling environment, or I have the ability to export only specific sheets. So if you're using this to share it with specific design teams, or you just want to share a specific update and have it checked, you have the ability to do that, have it, sheets annotated by drawn by, sheet issue date, sheet name, and then bring those specific sheets in, or you can do all of them. And very simply, when you hit export, it exports that and creates that model view within the viewer. I've already got it exported, so I won't bother to export now to speed up things within the demo, but it only takes a few minutes when you click that to render that model out into the Revizto environment, create that wire mesh, and to bring all the object data over with you. So I'll be coming back to Revit here in a minute, but what I've just done is I've opened up my Revizto, and you can see on my desktop, Revizto is installed as a tool within the desktop, and it's only the viewer that's installed now. You just double click on that icon, it opens up Revizto, and it opens up the viewing tool. So I open up Revizto Viewer, and you can see I've got all my projects available in front of me in this viewing environment. You also see that I have a number of tools and options that are picked to me. I can open specific projects, I can open multiple projects, I can also edit projects, I can archive projects, I can do a number of things from my workspace. This would be the workspace that the people work from. Now you'll notice on each of these different projects, some say local and some say cloud. Within Revizto, you have the ability to store the Revizto model in a local environment on your network drives, or as a part of the product no charge extra. We provide cloud storage within the very secure Amazon network of cloud storage that's out there, so that you can share your information outside of your firewalls and also share it outside of your design teams in a very controlled way. Now, I mentioned to you one of the changes in 4.0 is version control. So within all my projects, I can see that I don't have any that are updated. And the reason I can tell that is if I had an updated project, I would see a circular piece right where it says cloud, and in that area I would be able to see the word update to tell me that there was an update from the project immediately when I logged in. But I can check that very easily within the viewer by coming to the upper right, and I have this stopwatch with an arrow in the upper right. I click on that, and that actually takes me to the information about that project. So you can see this is last updated on the 18th of April. It's the second revision, and the time and who created it. So I can see, did I receive the update from the person I was expecting to receive it from, and is it the current version? I can also go back and I can look at a previous version and open that version if I want to go back into the work stream and see what a previous version looked like. So if I go ahead and double click into one of the projects, I'll just I'm going to click into a couple different projects to show you some visualizations for those that have not seen Revizto before. Another change within the 4.0 version is when you open a project, it takes you directly into that markup, that issue tracking environment. And you can see across the top, I have a number of toolbars that I can click on within the project space. If I go into those toolbars and I simply click the 3D, it opens up the 3D model, and I have a fully graphical representation of the model that was created. Now this isn't the model that I exported, but I'll be showing you that model in a minute. You can use standard gaming tools to move through. I can fly through the model as I'm doing now. I can also, if I click the airplane, I can walk through the model as if I was an individual. I can go through doors, gravity's on, and I can right click and hold my head and I can view around the model. If I walk over to the stairs, you will see that I'm actually walking up the stairs into this environment, and it won't let me fall through rails or anything else. And you can see the visuals are actually quite good. If I zoom into that screen, you see that that's photorealistic in the rendering pieces are there. Owners love this. They love the ability to interact with their model and see it. They love the ability to, go into their office and say, okay, this is my office. I can actually see what my surroundings are going to be like. I can see what my table is going to be like. And it gives a great way to share your design intent with your customers that are out there. But as I mentioned, for those non-Revizto users, it's not just about the visualization. You can actually see the objects within the building. So I've just double-clicked on the table, and you see on my left-hand side, I've got all the metadata with that object from the model. I know who it's made from. I can look at their website. I can see the type of table, and all the information that I held within my 3D building information model, I've got within the Revizto view. And that goes for everything that's in here, whether it's a wall or not. If I move over a little bit, give you another view of that wall. I've highlighted the wall. It tells me everything about it. It tells me when it's in the build process, what scheduling it is, how it's made up, etc. I can also turn it on and off so I can see what's behind that wall, whether there's any services or other information. Again, great for those maintenance crews or those construction crews to get an idea of what they're building and what it's going to be like. So that's one of the great things about Revizto is the ability to visualize that design environment. But we also have 2D sheets for this drawing. Within the 2D sheets, you can open up those sheets and you can see the sheets are replicated just as if they were within the Revit environment. 2D drawing, have all the information that are specific to that 2D sheets. I also have the ability to overlay that sheet directly on the design, move in, I can see what the details are about the room, I can measure it, I can actually drag the box or cut, and I can keep that overlay aligned to it. So when you're working in a collaborative environment with your construction team, for example, who are used to working in a 2D environment and aren't quite graphically set to be able to work in a 3D environment, they can overlay their 2D sheets with the 3D and they can actually see the information that's there. Go back in the 2D sheet. One of the additional functionalities of 4.0 was the ability to annotate markup. And I'm going to do the markup from the 2D sheet here just for a moment so you can see some of those markup tools that I was talking about. So if I come up to the toolbar, I've got a little question box with a plus in it. I click that plus. That actually allows me to create my first issue. It creates a bubble. I can drag that bubble to the point where I might have the issue or seen the issue within the design. I can type my title. I'm just going to say something simple. Desk spacing does not match requirements. I have the ability to pop that text to a specific point with a text box. I also have the ability, as I would with any markup, to put boxes around it. I can make those boxes freeform. I can change the type of lines. I can change the weight of the lines. I can change the color of the lines. I can also do my clouds, and design teams love their clouds from what I've seen. So I've created this issue. I put some text into it. You do have freeform drawing tools as well as circles. You can also attach documents to it if you want to attach a PDF into it. But I'm going to say done, and I've created that issue. You can see what it's done. It's actually created a issue here on the 2D drawing. But on the left-hand side of my page, I've actually got some tools I can pick. Right here I've highlighted them for you, which allows me to move between the 2D drawing, the 3D environment, and the markup that's been created. If I go here and I click 3D, you can see it takes me into that space, and again it's fully navigable, so I can interrogate the design and see what they're talking about. I can do it in flying mode, I can do it in a number of modes. I can go back to the 2D, and again I see my issue, double click on it, it takes me directly back to that 3D, or it takes me back to the markup if I pick the lower number, the lower button on the left. On the right hand side, you will see the issue trackers come up. So if I go out of my 3D drawing, I go back into that space, I can click the home button, I can go back to the start of my design, I can move, you can still continue interrogating. But if I want to go back and I want to view the issues, I can click my issue tracker, and you can see next to issue tracker, I've got a little button that highlights and it says green 22. That means I got 22 issues that are live within this drawing today. A small number, it's just a sampling, but it gives you an example so you can see what you're engaged with. So if I go back to issue tracker, I click on it, brings me back to that issue tracker tool, and actually allows me to look at all the issues that have been marked up and see those views in snapshots. And again, from those views, I can click the 3D and it takes me to the model, and again I can have fully navigable capability at that point. Within the issue, it also has a dialog box, and you can see here on the middle of our pane it has a feed just like you would in any social media, so you can see who created it, who started watching it, what was the original snapshot, what was the original markup, who's engaged in it from that process, what they did. So you have a full audit trail within Revisto of all these issues, and these are fully exportable in FBX format as PDFs, and I'll show you some reporting tools that we have here in a minute. The other thing you see within the issue tracker is you have on the right-hand side the status. This says in progress. I have the ability to change that. I have the ability to reassign to a specific individual, and I also have the ability to change the deadline for when I want this to be addressed. And that deadline is very important for the reporting functions and allows us to create some tags on those issues so that we can work with them. And why that's important, if you see up here on the toolbar, there's a little funnel. If I click on the funnel, it gives me the ability to search my issues. I just tag that last one by level 2. If I go into level 2, there's my issue. There's my other issues that are relevant on level 2. So if I'm a design team, I can work around in those environments. So that functionality is very important to the collaboration and the redline and the markup. There's a lot of other functionality I could show you, but we'll stick with that from this standpoint. Now I'm going to actually exit out of this model. I'm going to go back into that camp field so I can show you 2 other pieces really quick before we start wrapping up and start taking questions. If I come over here to open, it brings me back to my workspace. I've got the camp field architecture demo UK is the model that I linked earlier. I'm going to open that up. Again, it takes us into the issue tracker as it did before. And you see within issue tracker, I've got a couple of the issues on the right-hand side here that are red in color. If I click on those, if I look at the information, I can see that the deadline is passed. So I've got a graphical representation directly in my issue tracker of all the issues and whether they're current or not. When I export and when I go to do a report on those, it'll actually highlight those as a shareable PDF or Excel that I can bring into my design team and go through my review meetings with it. I've showed you the export. I've showed you the import. I'm going to come back into the 3D of this model. Open that up very quickly. You can see again, I've got the model. I've got all the objects are clickable within that model. And I can also create clarity so I can see what's behind those walls. I'm going to go ahead and create an issue here. Within that issue, just going to highlight a piece, access for service, create that issue, and again you can see that issue is there as the markup, again viewable at the 3D, again viewable in the markup. If I go to the 2D sheets really quickly, you can see I've got a number of 2D sheets within this plan. I can switch between the sheets. I can see the markups and the issues that are in those sheets. I can see the schedules. A complete list of sheets if I need to go to, and my pieces. But I can actually import sheets. So if I go into my file and I've got a PDF drawing that I want to add to this model, I can import. I can connect it to the model, which means make it as in vector format. And that has actually brought in that Sans Spa sketch plan as a 2D sheet within my 3D model and camp field. And I can actually work with that sheet now. If I bring it up, I can see, oh, there's a nice sketch. But I'm not quite sure of where some of those things are, so I want to create an issue. I can again go ahead and create an issue just as if this was a 2D sheet in the model. I can highlight a piece. I can change the weights, and I can put text, etc. So you can see, as I mentioned, it's a change in 4.0 of the ability to bring PDFs in and work with them. Create that issue. Again, that issue is there. Now, I mentioned that we're fully integrated into Revit. I want to show you that real quickly. So this is my Revizto viewer. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. So I don't have Revizto open. I'm going to bring my Revit model back up. You can see I'm back in my Revit environment. So now I don't have to worry about collating or collaborating those issues or those red lines or those markups that were created back into the Revit environment or my design team. I can remove a lot of that workflow simply by clicking the button that says Issue Tracker. What that actually does is it brings in Revizto Viewer. You see I'm launching my Revizto Viewer. It knows that that model is linked to the model that's there and brings me directly back into that model. Again, I can look at the whole model. I've got all the viewer functionality. I can also just look at my issues. I can go to my issues that are there. I've got one that's red. So I'm actually going to make this a bit smaller so that you can actually see. Okay, I've got my issues. I've got my Revit model here behind it. If I double click on an issue, you can see that's actually taking me to the Axiom view within my Revit model, so I can work on that issue without having to fumble through my sheets, without having to orient myself to my model and find out where that issue is. I've got the snapshot, I've got the issue, and I can go ahead and do my work. I can also do my annotations. If I come in here, I can say, you know what, I've looked at this. It's no longer an issue. I click Solved. I can enter data, meet specs. That tracks it in my feed, so I know exactly who did it and why they did it. I can also have the ability to attach documentation. If I'm in the field, I'm using a tablet, I can do all the same information from a tablet perspective within the issue tracker, and I can actually take snapshots and use that clip button, which is actually a camera on a tablet, to take pictures of the actual environment. I can come in, I can open PDFs, and I can attach them into the design team if I've got instructions or specific specs that I want to share. So from the Revizto 4.0, that's all the functionality of the new improvements, and it drastically increases the functionality and the decreases the amount of workflow necessary within the collaboration process. Hopefully that was beneficial for you. Come back into the presentation and we'll take questions here just in a second. I'd like to ask one more polling question before we get to questions. Based on what you've seen, will using Revizto simplify your collaboration process? Give you a second to vote. Wow. Resounding 70–80% says yes, thank you. And we'll definitely get more information to those that would need more information coming through. Okay, if you're not in the pilot or you're not in the beta and you would like to be, you can go to this website, and I'll share this presentation with you guys after the meeting so you have access to it. You can also Google Revizto 4.0 and you can request access to the beta. If you don't want to check the beta, if you want to use a live project, you can always go to revisto.com and you can download the current version of 3.7. Feel free to give myself or my colleagues a call. We have greatly invested in our sales staff and our commercial engagement capability within Revista over the last year. We've got 3 sales guys in the US that can engage with you. We've got a senior sales director within the US, and we also have myself here in Europe to engage with you and help you understand how to use Revista to improve your business. Feel free to take down the details, take down my details, ask any questions. We'll make sure you get the right answer at the right time to that. So with that said, we've come to the end of the webinar. What I'd quickly like to do is see if there's any questions that I can answer. Okay, there is a question. And it says, yes, I've recorded this presentation and it will be available offline to share with your colleagues. We're recording it right now. This presentation will be shared with the attendees, as well as the recording may be available through YouTube for others to see. Okay, there's a question regarding the scheduler from Stephen. Stephen, if you could type a little more detail. Let's go to the top. There's a question, would we support Viva? I need to double check, but we are very interested in supporting all the natural formats that are out there, Ian. Let me come back to you and get an answer for that and give you an outlook for when we'll be able to support your chosen application. Do we support Google Cardboard? Yes, we do support the visualization goggles and glasses that are out there. Again, I can share information with you on how to use those visualization goggles within the Revizto environment. You'll find that it's going to be plug and play with your computer that you're using. Are there any known issues with any graphic cards is a question. Sagar, I'm going to take this question offline and I'm going to get back to you with some very specific answers. The basic answer is yes, you need a fairly powerful graphics card to work in this 3D visualization environment. I'm using a current laptop, but it is pretty loaded with a good graphics card and a good amount of memory. We do have some specs on the website, and I'll be glad to share that with you to make sure that you get the answer. The other is feel free to use support@revisto.com email alias anytime you have a question or a technical need. If you're in the middle of the beta and you have some questions that need to be helped, they can help you with that. Now, your question is more specific to the editor's crashing as soon as you launch it. You need to make sure that your address data is correct within the editor as well as within the viewer when you're using your ports to access the internet. So I'd highlight that to you, but again, I'll take that offline and I'll come back to you in more detail. Are Revit filters able to export to Revizto 4.0? Yan, we do natively integrate within Revit, and we do, if it's a drawing or a layer within Revit, we can export that as well. So again, the views and the things that you apply to those graphics within Revit will be visible within the Revizto environment. Is this using the Windows Task Scheduler from Steve? Steve, it's a great question. We are using a task scheduler based within the Revizto product, but I'll be glad to come back to you with more detail on that. The full version of 4.0, we are going to release it mid-May, I believe is the dates that you'll have access to use it as a final project, as a live product. I do know we've got some changes that we're making that we've picked up through the beta, and we'll be releasing those. We want to check those very thoroughly to make sure that everything's working properly, but the target is here in May to have that 4.0 available for NI. We've already answered the question about are we recording? We have a question from Javier. Is there a tool to find and isolate objects? Maybe search by sub-objects? Yes, there is. Javier, I'm just going to switch back into my Revizto viewer real quick for you, just to highlight this for you. If I go to my 3D, you can see on the left-hand side of the Revizto, this is both in 3.7 and 4.0, you have three little bars. If you go into those three little bars, click the drop down, you have your objects are pickable. That brings up a dialog box on the right-hand side. You can click on, I just want to see my air handling units. I want to see a very specific one. It'll take you to that part in the model, and you can very easily navigate in and out of it. You double click on it, and it has all the object data that's in it. You can search those, you can filter those, you can turn them on and off. So if you just want to see the architecture with the mechanical, you can see those pieces. If you just want to see the pipes, that's all selectable from an object perspective. So hopefully that answers your question, Javier. So there's a question from Ken about importing clashes. So Ken, I do have clashes here, and in the interest of the speed of the demo, I didn't go through it. We're natively linked within the Navis environment, and I've shared this with Pat. We have the ability to import clashes. I'll actually go to my issue tracker now within 4.0. You can see my filter here. If I click on filter, I go down, I actually have a clash piece. If I want to see all my clashes, if I want to just see my clashes only, you can see that I've imported, I think, about 27 clashes from a very simple Navis clash detection I did on this model. And those clashes are highlighted within the drawing, as you can see. I get a section box around that clash. I can actually see where it is. You can see what the clash pieces are. I can see it in both the 2D environment and the 3D environment. And again, if I go back into Revit, I go into my issue tracker. I can bring up my issues, which is here. And again, I'll just close that Axion view that I had. Come to my issue tracker, double click on a clash, and that takes me directly in the model to that clash, so I can see that item that was clashing. And if I go into my issue tracker view, again, I can see that clash from a snapshot perspective. Exporting from Navis those clashes, you can choose clash classes, you can choose specific clashes, or you can import all the clashes, and you can batch assign those clashes to groups that are using them. For example, I can click this edit button, I can pick specific ones, and then I can come in and I can reassign those by editing them and assigning the data that's there. Hope that helps, Ken. Is there a size limit within Revizto? The answer is no, but it is graphically intensive. So, you can bring very large files into it, but there are ways of working to improve the functionality if you're getting 30 gigabyte files or 40 gigabyte files to come into it. If you have very large sites, we have some customers that are using Revizto across massive projects with multiple buildings, multiple assets on site, and thousands and thousands of drawings. And by breaking that up and looking at it on a building by building basis, or looking at it on a trade by trade basis, it allows them to move much more efficiently. But you can import very, very large models into the Revizto environment. Again, have we recorded? Yes, we've recorded this presentation, and it will be available afterwards. Okay, we talked about objects, talked about the scheduler, we talked about Navis, and yes, to finally answer your question, Ken, it does work as before, with actually a little bit improved functionality because you don't have to go through the editor. Can you add sound to the model through Revizto? Ian, I'm sorry, the answer is yes, you can actually record a fly-through within Revizto. If I go back into the 3D Again, click those three bars on the left. You see you've got a video button. I can click on that. I've got a microphone. I can record an audio as I do a fly through this model. I can record it, I can save it as a file, and I can send it to anybody I want. Our lighting calcs performed after the viewer workflow. Any chance of how I can switch to the editor? Yeah, very easily. Again, this is for we. The editor functionality is still there. We just haven't made it a part of the import workflow. You can see I've highlighted at the upper top of the drawing here, or of the viewer tool here. You just click on editor, and it brings up the same editor functionality that you had before within Revizto. You can see my editor's opening. You see the model's opening in that environment. Again, I still have the materials. I've got the illumination. I've got the ability to look at the objects, add additional object fields, et cetera, as you did before within the editor environment. Will Revizto be able to generate structured PDF reports for the clashes or issues? Absolutely. Revizto does support clashes and reporting of those clashes. And it's very simply from within Issue Tracker, you click the button that's not highlighted in this piece that looks like a mail icon, and that actually generates a PDF report. That report can be sent to anybody that is within your project team or individuals. That can be a PDF, it could be an Excel. And what is sent in the PDF is exactly the snapshot that you view. You can turn on and off the audit trail so they can see all the information that is fed, this feed of information that's here in the middle of the issue. Point cloud filters. No, we are not currently working with point cloud filters at this point. You would be using the point cloud functionality within Revit or your design tool to import your point clouds to create your visualization, and then we'll bring that into the Revizto environment. Again, we want to be very clear on the value that we offer as Revizto is taking the design out of that complex design environment into a very easy to use, user-friendly environment, be able to interact with that environment within Revizto. We'll be doing in the future, it's something we can look at, but currently it's not available in 4.0. And Ian, I've got your question on the sound. Let me take that offline. I'll come back to you with an answer on that, more specifically to background noises is Ian's question. Can you check the models actually merged in Revizto? Absolutely. Again, Javier, I showed you the object pieces. When you look at the model, I can turn those objects off, turn the architecture off, for example. You can see my MEP models here. You can see whether components are missing by looking at the visualization quite easily. You can also see if those objects are, highlightable and changeable to see whether your model is actually merged properly before you brought it into Revizto and you're working from the central and unified model. Steve asked a question about any change to how the model update process works. Yeah, it's a pretty significant change for 4.0. The way that you export the model and update the model within 4.0, the process of actually exporting hasn't changed other than the scheduler, so you can schedule that to happen in the future. And the fact that it actually highlights that update within your workspace and gives you that audit trail of the previous versions of that model updates. So you can see who updated it and whether to work from that update or not. Can we have different colors for the same element category, i.e. supply duct and return duct? You can, as you set those up within your object classes within Revit, you can change those colors and how they're represented within the viewer within Revizto. Do we have plans for implementing some kind of augmented reality in the future? For example, QR codes that you can scan on site and fly to the corresponding view in the 3D model? Do you know, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. That's something that we're looking at in the future and supporting those. QR codes are starting to be used in the design process to highlight everything from maintenance processes to maintenance information to specific design information that's within there. Currently today within the model, we do highlight room information within the model. So if I come back in, I turn all my objects back on. Come into the model, you can see I have rooms. I've got room information there. If I go to that room, I can see that room here in my model. And you can see within this room, I've got a key. Today within Revizto 3.7 and 4.0 actually, I can click on that icon, that key icon, and it actually brings up my room data for that room. Everything that I need to know for that. We can, that key can be linked into the design model, and in the future we'll be looking at the, supporting the QR codes that you're asking about. And one final question before we close up. It looks like all the questions have been answered. Fantastic. Well, I wanted to thank you as an audience for your interaction today and for answering the information that we have. I do have one more poll before you disappear, if you can bear with me. And this is one for myself. Did this webinar answer questions about 4.0 and provide you more information about Revizto? If you can answer that very quickly. 94% yes. Thank you very much. You're far too kind. I'd like to thank you very much for the time that you spent today seeing about Revizto 4.0. I'll leave you with this slide of where you can ask more questions with your colleagues and your support within the various geos. Again, have a great day. Thank you for joining.